Picture a massive storm rolling in. Like the sky turns this bruised purple, the wind is just howling at gale force, and you are watching two distinct plants react to all that pressure.
Right, the classic imagery.
Exactly. So on one side, you have a massive ancient oak tree, and it is entirely rigid. It's resisting every single gust of wind, just fighting the storm with pure, unyielding stiffness.
Yeah, and on the other side, you have the bamboo.
Right, a stalk of bamboo getting whipped around, bending completely in half, almost touching the ground. But when the storm finally breaks and the sky clears, that giant oak tree is actually cracked and splintered under the immense pressure.
While the bamboo simply pops right back up to its original center.
Exactly. It survives because it bends.
It's a universally recognized image for a reason. It appears across countless cultural histories and myths, but it gets right to the heart of a fundamental, almost systemic misunderstanding we have about what it actually takes to survive adversity. Because human beings have this deep-seated tendency to equate strength exclusively with stiffness. Like, we treat rigidity as the ultimate armor against an unpredictable world.
Which brings us to the entire mission for today's deep dive, because we really want to redefine that understanding of strength for you. We are unpacking a highly insightful piece of writing from the Finch Q team.
It's titled Rigidity, Flexibility, and Resilience: Why the Strongest Thing is Not Always the Stiffest.
Yeah, that's the one. And our goal here is to shortcut you to being well-informed on why adaptability and, not sheer force might just be the single most critical ingredient for healthy aging, movement, and, overall survival.
You see this underlying philosophy echoed heavily in martial arts and Eastern philosophy, too. The Finch Q text brings up Bruce Lee's famous mandate, be formless, shapeless, like water. Water can flow and it can crash.
Okay, let's unpack this immediately, because be water, my friend, is plastered on gym walls and motivational posters everywhere.
Oh, everywhere.
Yeah. And it usually feels like a cheap, passive slogan. Like the implication is often just relax and go with the flow, which frankly sounds a bit apathetic when you are facing real structural challenges in life.
Oh, sure. When you reduce it to a poster, it absolutely loses its meaning. But analyzing it as a profound philosophy of biomechanical and psychological adaptability, that changes the entire paradigm.
How so?
Through the lens of fluid dynamics, water isn't weak. It operates on the path of least resistance, yet it can literally carve through solid granite over time.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's true.
What Bruce Lee was getting at, and what the Finch Q team emphasizes structurally, is a core truth about how systems survive. My core belief here is that resilience is not the ability to resist change. It is the ability to change shape without losing your foundational integrity.
That sounds incredibly enlightened in theory, but let's look at human nature for a second. When you or I actually feel threatened, our biological instinct does the exact opposite. We don't flow, we brace.
We absolutely do.
Think about it like being a nervous driver. You're driving down the highway, and suddenly your car hits a patch of black ice.
Terrifying.
Right. And the immediate instinctual reaction for most people is to grip that steering wheel as tightly as humanly possible. You lock your arms, you lock your jaw, you tense your core.
Yeah, you become a statue.
But structurally, that rigidity is the precise mechanism that causes you to lose control of the car faster. By becoming a rigid extension of the steering column, you overcorrect. If you stayed loose and steered into the skid, letting the suspension do its job, you'd likely recover. But our instinct is just to turn into a brick.
What's fascinating here is that driving analogy maps perfectly onto the human nervous system's physical response to a threat. Rigidity constantly hides fragility.
Right.
When we look at kinesiology and physical bracing, which the text details beautifully, we see this mechanism clearly, especially as people age or recover from physical trauma.
So what happens exactly?
Well, when someone feels unsteady on their feet, their proprioceptors, those are the sensors in the joints and muscles that tell the brain where the body is in space. They send a panic signal. So to minimize variables, the brain activates a sympathetic nervous system response. It actually floods the muscles with acetylcholine to essentially lock the joints in place. It's an evolutionary glitch trying to turn the body into a solid object to avoid breaking.
So they lock their knees, hold their breath, take these tiny guarded steps,
and stare straight down at the floor. They stop integrating natural movement and just grip whatever furniture is nearby.
The irony is that mechanically, removing joint mobility eliminates the body's natural shock absorbers.
Exactly. It creates the paradox of balance. People tend to think of good balance as stillness, like a statue carved out of marble.
Right, like not moving at all.
But neuromuscular balance is actually highly controlled, constant movement. Your ankles, your hips, your trunk, your eyes, they all need to make continuous, fluid micro-adjustments based on sensory feedback.
So if you are entirely rigid and your foot hits an unexpected change in the carpet or like a crack in the sidewalk, the kinetic energy of that bump travels straight up your rigid skeletal structure.
Right to your center of gravity, because a statue cannot touch itself. You simply tip over like a domino, completely at the mercy of gravity.
Wow. So you have essentially neutralized your own defenses by bracing.
Exactly. To navigate a sudden shift in the environment, you need responsive ankles, soft knees, mobile hips, and calm breathing just to process spatial information.
Right.
The objective in fall prevention, and broadly in moving through the physical world safely, is not to become an immovable object. The objective is to become responsive. A rigid body only has one response, which is brace. A flexible body can choose to absorb, shift, step, or roll.
It's the bamboo structure again.
Yeah.
It has a rigid matrix, so it can stand tall against gravity, but it maintains cellular give. It can bend, absorb kinetic force, and return to center without catastrophic failure, which makes total sense mechanically.
Yeah.
But bridging from the physical body to the way we think, I know this concept goes far beyond just kinesiology.
Oh, absolutely. The neural pathways governing physical movement and cognitive thought are deeply intertwined. The body and the mind really mirror each other's survival strategies.
Okay, how so?
Well, just as the physical body locks the joints to prevent a physical fall, the human mind relies on cognitive schemas, rigid frameworks of belief to protect our sense of self. We brace cognitively just as intensely as we brace physically.
Because it feels predictable and safe.
Exactly.
Wait, let me push back on that framework a bit. Aren't strong opinions and strict routines inherently valuable? Like, we praise discipline, we admire people who know exactly what they stand for and execute their daily lives with precision.
Sure.
So how do we scientifically define the line between a discipline guiding principle and, well, a cognitive cage?
To understand where that line is drawn, we really have to look at cognitive behavioral adaptation. A principle is an adaptable heuristic that guides your decision-making in real time. A cage is a hardwired reflex that traps you regardless of the context.
Right, it doesn't bend.
Exactly. Cognitive rigidity is clinically defined by the inability or unwillingness to update your mental models when new contradictory information appears.
Oh, I see.
It's the neurological difference between saying, I prefer to operate this way because it yields the best results, and saying, I have always done it this way, therefore no other method can exist without causing a systemic collapse.
And the Finch Q-text highlights how this cognitive bracing manifests in daily thoughts, right? Like someone saying, I fell once, therefore walking outside is an inherently lethal activity.
Right.
Or, this pain is just aging, so modifying my behavior is pointless.
Or the most pervasive one we see in the literature, if I have to ask for assistance, my independence is over.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. That specific belief is where cognitive rigidity pivots from being a protective mental shortcut into a highly destructive limitation. The authors highlight an incredibly profound insight regarding human development here.
What is it?
The most agonizing part of aging or navigating any major life transition or injury is rarely the physical decline itself. The profound struggle is the required identity change.
Because we all build these complex load-bearing identities over decades. Like, I am the provider, or I am the resilient one, or I am the caregiver everyone relies on.
Right. And when your physical capacity changes due to an injury or simply time, a rigid identity structure treats that physical limitation as a total annihilation of the self.
So clinging to a past iteration of your identity creates immense psychological friction.
Exactly. This is where cognitive rigidity dictates tragic real-world outcomes. A person might outright refuse a necessary home modification or, reject using a walker.
Even when they clearly need it.
Right. To an objective observer, the walker is just a tool. But to a rigidly braced mind, that aluminum frame is a physical manifestation of defeat and humiliation.
But the authors don't just leave us with the diagnosis here. They offer a solution they call adaptive identity.
Yeah.
It's a neurological process of evolving the self-concept without completely abandoning the core values. Instead of the rigid neural pathway firing off, if I cannot navigate the stairs exactly how I did at age 30, I am useless.
The flexible mind engages the prefrontal cortex to ask, what is a different method to achieve the same goal? You actively update the identity.
So you reframe it to, I am a fiercely independent person, and because of that, I use advanced tools and strategies to maintain my autonomy.
Exactly. The core value, which is independence, remains intact. But the methodology becomes fluid. You tell yourself, I am still myself, even as the parameters of my environment shift. Recognizing that utilizing a cane or an assistive device isn't a surrender of freedom. It's actually the precise mechanical advantage that allows you to stay engaged with your community. It actively preserves your agency.
So we are preserving the overarching objective, living a full, engaged life by being relentlessly flexible about the daily execution.
That's a great way to put it.
But what happens when we apply this to the emotional side of things? If we can intellectually accept physical tools and we can intentionally rewire our cognitive identities, how do we address emotional coping mechanisms that have become, calcified?
Emotional rigidity operates on the exact same premise, but within the emotional processing centers. And it is crucial to clarify that emotional rigidity is not the absence of emotion.
Okay, so what is it?
Well, experiencing profound grief, intense fear, or valid anger is a sign of a healthy, functioning emotional spectrum. Emotional rigidity occurs when the nervous system gets trapped in a single, unyielding emotional posture as a universal defense mechanism against all stimuli.
Like someone who navigates every single interaction with hyper-defensiveness?
Yes, or someone whose baseline response to any inconvenience is explosive anger, or permanently adopting the role of the victim to avoid accountability.
Right.
But it frequently masks itself as something socially acceptable, too. Forced positivity or toxic positivity is a massive, socially rewarded form of emotional rigidity.
Oh, that makes sense. The person who is always pretending everything is totally fine.
Exactly. The individual who aggressively suppresses any admission of pain or struggle is not demonstrating emotional flexibility. They are deeply emotionally braced. They are actively suppressing their natural responses, which requires an immense amount of chronic physiological energy.
It sounds like the classic good vibes only trap, where acknowledging a negative reality is treated as a personal failure.
It is exactly that trap, and it's insidious because it prevents actual processing. True emotional flexibility involves what we call affect labeling.
Affect labeling.
Yeah, it's the ability to accurately name the feeling as it occurs, which neuroimaging shows actually decreases the stress response and increases prefrontal cortex engagement. By naming the emotion, you create psychological space. And space creates choice.
So the internal dialogue shifts to, I'm experiencing profound grief right now, but I still have the capacity to let a friend comfort me.
Exactly. Or, I am terrified of this medical diagnosis and therefore I will ask for an expert's help. You are permitting the emotional state to exist as data without letting it dictate your entire behavioral reality.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting, because I want to introduce a counter-argument here regarding structural integrity.
Let's hear it.
If we follow this logic to its absolute extreme, like if a person is entirely flexible physically, mentally, and emotionally, prioritizing adaptation above all else, don't they just become a puddle? Yeah, I mean, if you possess no rigidity and you endlessly adapt to every situation and every person's demands, you lose your boundaries. I like to think of the nervous system as needing to be a Swiss Army knife rather than a standard kitchen knife.
Okay, I follow you.
A kitchen knife only cuts, right? It's rigid. A Swiss Army knife has a tool for every problem, but it still requires a solid steel housing to hold all those tools together. If you remove the housing, you just have a pile of loose metal.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, your Swiss Army knife housing analogy perfectly illustrates the exact nuance the Finch Q text addresses. Pure flexibility devoid of any structural framework is simply instability.
Exactly.
If you perpetually change your core goals based on the room you are in, you lack consistency. If you fluidly adopt the opinions of whoever spoke last, you forfeit your own discernment. You dissolve your boundaries.
You essentially evaporate into the environment.
Right. The authors rely on natural metaphors to anchor this concept. Water requires the structural integrity of a riverbank to become a directed channel. Otherwise, it's just a stagnant swamp. Bamboo requires deep, rigid root systems to anchor its flexible stalk.
For flexibility needs principles.
Yes. Psychological and physical flexibility require foundational principles. The objective is never to become shapeless and void of self. The objective is discovering the precise sweet spot. You cultivate enough rigid structure to stand upright against gravity and opposition, and you cultivate enough flexibility to absorb the inevitable shocks without shattering.
That integration is the true definition of resilience. So it's about the synthesis of the two. Cultivating strength without succumbing to stiffness. Building reliable routines that don't slowly morph into invisible cages.
Exactly.
Which brings us to the functional, everyday application for you listening. How do you actually train your central nervous system to default to that sweet spot when confronted with the unpredictable chaos of daily life?
Training the nervous system requires understanding the specific enemy, which is functional rigidity. Predictable routines are highly beneficial. They reduce decision fatigue, regulate our sleep, ensure we stick to our exercise.
Right. Routines are good.
But the pathology of functional rigidity sets in when those routines narrow so severely that any deviation causes a systemic panic.
We see this when someone restricts their world just to eliminate variables, like they will only leave their house if the weather is precisely 72 degrees, or they refuse to eat unless they're sitting in one specific chair.
Or they cancel plans if their preferred route is closed. Or they only trust one specific helper. They are attempting to control the environment to protect their rigid framework. But the fundamental nature of the universe is entropy and variability.
The physical world is indifferent to a rigid routine. Sidewalks heave and crack. Sudden storms materialize.
Yeah.
A grandchild unexpectedly sprints across your path in the living room. Airports are chaotic.
Exactly. The environment will always, eventually, introduce a variable you didn't plan for. Therefore, the goal of training is to purposefully build what the authors term a library of responses.
A library of responses.
Yeah. A resilient central nervous system thrives on having multiple motor and cognitive options available. If you lose your balance and the subtle ankle strategy is sufficient to correct your center of mass, the brain uses the ankle. If the disruption is larger and requires hip flexion, the brain fires the hip muscles.
If you need to abandon your current stance and take a rapid step, you just step.
Exactly. It's effortlessly pulling different tools out of the Swiss Army knife based entirely on real-time sensory feedback. That is the essence of survival. Resilience is not a single heroic act of gritting your teeth. It is literally the capacity to possess a vast library of responses.
So the broader your options, the less likely one disruption becomes a catastrophe.
Yes. A legitimate fall prevention protocol, for instance, isn't just mindlessly doing seated leg extensions. It's an integrated option-building program for the brain and body.
That library concept ties directly into how the text describes water thinking in physical rehabilitation and daily problem solving.
Oh, absolutely.
Because it is so easy to fall into the cognitive trap of all or nothing thinking. A person will declare, well, my schedule changed, and I don't have time for my full 45-minute gym routine, so my entire fitness plan is ruined for the day.
That is the sound of a rigid plan shattering the moment reality introduces a variable.
But water thinking fundamentally bypasses that block.
Right.
Water doesn't expend kinetic energy arguing with a boulder in the middle of the riverbed. It simply utilizes physics to find the opening around the obstacle.
Right, it flows around it.
Instead of abandoning the goal, water thinking analyzes the new parameters. Okay, the 45-minute window is gone. Can I execute a 2-minute mobility drill? Can I practice a seated exercise while on this conference call?
It isn't a rationalization for lowering your standards. It is a highly advanced strategy for preserving behavioral momentum.
And you can systematically train this, right? You don't have to wait for a crisis.
You don't. You can deliberately engage in what the text identifies as safe variability to proactively stock that library of responses.
By safe variability, you mean intentionally exposing your nervous system to controlled, manageable unpredictability.
Yes. Intelligent, titrated exposure. If you habitually sit in the exact same chair for hours, practice standing up from a different, slightly lower chair to force your muscles to calculate a new trajectory.
Oh, that's clever.
Deliberately walk on varying, safe textures. Transition from hardwood to thick carpet to a grassy lawn. Practice safely turning your head side to side while maintaining your forward walking pace to challenge your balance. Carry an asymmetrical load like a bag of groceries in just one hand.
You are intentionally stretching your comfort zone's perimeter under controlled conditions before a real-world emergency forces you to.
You are actively communicating with your nervous system. You're proving to it through physical evidence the environment is changing, and we possess the adequate tools to manage it. And this principle applies equally to social and cognitive domains. You challenge your long-held assumptions by reading opposing viewpoints. You practice affect labeling to process emotions in real time. You build a network and ask for minor assistance before you're trapped in an isolating crisis.
So what does this all mean for you listening today? The paramount takeaway from this deep dive is a fundamental paradigm shift in how you conceptualize strength. Rigidity operates on a terrifying premise, which is, I must never change, and I can only survive if the external world remains perfectly predictable.
And because the world is never predictable, that mindset guarantees eventual failure.
Exactly. Flexibility, rooted in a strong structural foundation, operates on a much more powerful premise. I can adapt my shape without disappearing. I can effectively respond when the parameters change. We absolutely require structural strength, but we must strip away the stiffness. We need the reliable housing of our routines, but we cannot let them become invisible cages.
The ultimate metric of success isn't ensuring you are never moved by the storm. It is ensuring you remain intact and functional after the movement has occurred.
Stand like the ancient oak when your structural integrity requires it. Bend like the bamboo when the pressure demands it. And flow like water when the path inevitably changes.
This raises an important question to consider moving forward. We've spent this deep dive analyzing how individual human bodies, minds, and identities inevitably fail when they become calcified and rigid.
Yeah.
But what happens when we zoom out and apply this concept of a library of responses to our societal structures and global systems?
Oh, wow.
If physical and cognitive rigidity always hide underlying fragility on a personal level, we have to ask, are the rigid institutions, the corporate workplaces, and the economic systems we've built around ourselves currently suffering from their own systemic brittleness?
Because we are navigating an era of rapidly accelerating global storms right now. Technological disruptions, economic shifts.
Environmental crises. Are our societies structurally built like the oak, stubbornly insisting on outdated methodologies and risking a massive splintering under pressure? Or are we actively engineering societal structures like the bamboo, possessing the built-in flexibility necessary to bend, adapt, and survive?
That is a phenomenal structural question to leave you with today. Are we building oak systems or are we cultivating bamboo systems? Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you take these kinesiological and psychological frameworks and actively apply them to your own routines, your mindsets, and your physical movement. Stay curious, stay adaptable, and keep exploring. We'll catch you on the next one.